Be my victim.
Boogeyman Ben. Horror Zone.
Hey everyone, it's Boogeyman Ben. Hope everyone's doing well and everyone's having a great day. This video is going to be a retrospective that I wanted to do many months ago. I actually watched all the films back to back and intended to do this retrospective last fall, and I just never got around to doing it. But this is a retrospective video on the Candyman series. So I have all three Candyman films. I watched them all, and I've wanted to talk about this series for quite a while now. A huge fan of Tony Todd, and I still remember the sense of dread that I got watching the film for the first time. Knew absolutely nothing about it. I've never been a huge Clive Barker fan. I mean, I appreciate the Hellraiser films, and I own quite a few of them, and I love some of the characters in that, like Pinhead and Chatterer and Butterball, but I just wasn't into the universe as much as some people were. And I didn't realize that this was a film that was inspired by his book, The Forbidden. But yeah, I was blown away the first time I saw Candyman and the first time I saw Tony Todd, who scared the living fucking shit out of me, and still I think is a formidable presence in any film that he is in. But I'm really excited to talk about this series and give my thoughts on it, and I hope everyone looks forward to this retrospective. Please stay tuned. The Candyman, a murderous soul with a hook for a hand, is accidentally summoned to reality by a skeptical grad student researching the monster's myth. The movie stars the gorgeous Virginia Madsen as Helen Lyle, Tony Todd, the man, as Candyman, Daniel Robitaille, Alexander Berkeley as Trevor Lyle, Casey Lemons as Bernadette Bernie Walsh, Vanessa Williams as Anne Marie McCoy, and Ted Raimi as Billy. The story comes from the book by Clive Barker, The Forbidden, and the movie was written and directed by Bernard Rose. So, of course, we first have to talk about Candyman, which came out in 1992, and I did not see this in the theaters. I rented it from the Warehouse, which was a place I used to rent movies all the time. And I remember it scared the shit out of me. And I was 18 years old when I saw this film, and it petrified me. I don't know what it was. I think it was just because it was so different. And Tony Todd just really creeped me out. And the original reason I just rented is because I had a huge crush, and still do, on Virginia Madsen. I've always just loved her in films, and like I said, in movies like Fire with Fire and Class and a couple other films I had seen her in growing up. I just really had a crush on her, and that was why I initially rented the film. Plus, it was a horror film, so I wanted to check it out. But it just really disturbed the shit out of me, and to this day, I will not say his name 5 times while looking in a mirror. That's how creeped out I was by this film. But I think the cast is fantastic in it. Virginia Madsen as Helen Lyle is just, you're so with her in this film. And at the beginning, she's this graduate student that's doing a research on modern folklore, and so she has kind of this arrogance and edge to her. But then you see her slowly succumb to madness as she realizes that the Candyman is real, and that he is targeting her and people around her. She just does a fantastic job in this, as does Tony Todd. Like I said, I think he's one of the scariest figures ever put on film. The Candyman is still just absolutely terrifying. I've loved Tony Todd since seeing this film, and I love seeing him in anything that he does. His voice and his presence, he is truly terrifying. And some really cool facts about this film that I didn't realize until I watched this, and also watched the documentary that is on this DVD, is that Bernard Rose really hypnotized Virginia Madsen for some of the scenes. There's some scenes where she's under the Candyman spell, and he hypnotized her for those scenes. She doesn't remember filming some of the scenes because she was under hypnosis, and Bernard Rose was the only one that had the keyword or the word that would bring her out of it, which I thought was really interesting. Also, they did really shoot some of this film in Cabrini Green in Chicago, which was a very dangerous area. They hired actual gang members to portray people in the film. And the last night of shooting in Cabrini Green, somebody shot from the rooftop of one of the buildings into the camera truck. I mean, that is truly terrifying. But yeah, very, very scary film. When I watched it, it's the music by Philip Glass as well is just fantastic. I love that score, and I think it just really adds to. It's a simplistic score, just sort of something like. What John Carpenter did for Halloween. It just works. It's not overly done. It's just this perfect score, and just that and the acting and the atmosphere, the settings. There's really nothing bad to say about Candyman. I give Candyman 5 skulls.
The plot of Candyman 2 Farewell to the Flesh deals with the Candyman appearing in the city of New Orleans where horrific murders start. This time his intended victim is a school teacher. Her father was killed by Candyman and brother wrongfully accused of the murders. Once again, you have the amazing Tony Todd returning as Candyman, Daniel Robitaille. You also have Kelly Rowan as Annie Terrett. William O'Leary as Ethan Terrett, Bill Nunn as Reverend Ellis, Veronica Cartwright as Octavia Terrett, and Timothy Carhart as Paul McKeever. The story was written by Clive Barker with a screenplay by Rand Ravitch and Matt Kruger, and the movie was directed by Bill Condon.
Now, Candyman 2 Farewell to the Flesh would come out in 1995, so 3 years after the original. This film is not as good as the first film. There's elements of it I do like. I think it has more of a gothic feel than the first film did. Of course, this one takes place in New Orleans, which I thought was if you're going to change it up, it is a nice change of pace. There is a really cool part at the very beginning that ties into the first film. I was hoping that the way the first film ended, and like I said, I don't want to spoil it for people who haven't seen it. I was hoping that more of that would transition into the second film. But the second film just feels almost like in a different city location, a rehash of the first film. Just, with different people, people discovering who Candyman is, things like that. I really thought that since we've established who he was, what he went through in the first film, that the second film would take sort of a different route. But it doesn't. The thing about this is it's a mid-90s horror film, and this is when horror films were pretty much struggling. There wasn't really a lot of good horror films coming out in the mid-90s before Scream. I think between Candyman, the first film, and Scream, horror films were pretty subpar. Like In the Mouth of Madness was good. There was a couple of gems like that, but a lot of times you would just have crap. But the thing about this one is it injects a lot of unnecessary humor into it. I also thought they overused Philip Glass's score, where it was used perfectly in the first film. And I think again you have just a fantastic director in the first film with Bernard Rose. But Bill Condon has gone on to do some terrific films as well. But yeah, there was just some differences to this. Like I said, the opening really sets it up well, and I really like how that kind of was a tie-in from the first film. I thought that was fantastic. And of course, Tony Todd again shines as the Candyman. But the lead actress, Kelly Rowan, I just wasn't that into her. I thought she was kind of boring. I thought Veronica Cartwright did a good job. I was a fan of her from Alien and The Birds. She does a good job in this. But just some of the other characters just didn't have very much for me. But, I mean, it's not all negative. There are some really cool things. There's some flashbacks to Candyman's past. You actually get to see what happens to him, whereas in the first film they just talked about it. You also get some really cool gore effects. There are some cool things to this film, so it's not completely a bust for me. If I had to give it a rating on my system, I would give it 3 skulls.
For Candyman 3 Day of the Dead, the basic plot is that the Candyman is back trying to convince his descendant, an artist, to join him. To his end, he frames her for a series of hideous murders of her friends and associates so that she has no one else to turn to. You have Tony Todd as the Candyman, Daniel Robitaille, Donna D'Errico as Caroline McKeever, Sue Garcia as David De La Paz, Wade Williams as Samuel Kraft, and Mike Maruff as Tino. The movie was written by Al Septien and Terry Meyer, and was directed by Terry Meyer.
This film is friggin' horrible, and I had only seen it one other time. I got it on Amazon really cheaply. I think I got it for like $5 or $6 about 4 years ago. So I had actually not watched it again until I planned to do this retrospective, because, you know, I wanted to talk about, you know, all of them, not just the first film. And this film makes the second film look like a masterpiece. This film is absolutely terrible. It's shot so cheaply. The other thing that pisses me off about it is that the mythos for Candyman, the way they set it up in this film, it completely contradicts the first two films, which makes no sense. There's just a cheap quality to the film. And lead actress Donna D'Errico, who I think was known for Baywatch. I never watched Baywatch, but I think that's where she was known for. All she does is scream through this film. There's no depth to her character. The woman in the second film had more depth to her character than Donna does in this film. She's not trying to be negative towards her, but all she does is scream and shriek and all this stuff. There's just nothing. Like, again, I keep going back to Virginia Madsen from the first film. Perfectly played. She went through every emotion in that film. You see her strong and confident. You see her weak. You see her going insane. There's so many layers to the Helen character in the first film that none of the other actresses in the sequels could compare to it. Also, just the way that the film is, and I thought I'd never say this, but they kind of took the menace away from Candyman a little bit with changing up the mythos. And I said, how is that possible? Making Tony Todd not as menacing as he was in the first two films, but this film succeeds in spades in that regard. Tony Todd does do a good job with the material, but he's the best part about this film. So there is some good gore in the film, but the characters are so hollow you don't really connect to them. I mean, there's no impact when they're killed, and I think that's a big negative for this one, as opposed to the first two films, where even in the second film, the first one I connected to all the characters. In the second one, there were some characters I really liked, so when they died, you did feel for them. And this one, you don't have any of that. And then Donna D'Errico's character is accused of killing her friends, which really echoes things that happened in the first Candyman. But here, it just seems like it's just a retread. They're just doing the same thing that the first film did, but it's much more. But it's very poorly executed in this. Also, there was a thing about the Candyman that was different in this. In this, he's like slitting people's throats and hanging people on meat hooks. It's like, I just didn't get it, because in the other films he was using his hook. And I don't know, because in the other films he uses his hook and he slits you like this. So I'm like, just doesn't make sense. It's really, really poorly done. Really poorly done. So if you can't tell by now, I was not a fan of this film. Yes, it is in my collection because I'm a completist, but it is a film I do not plan to watch again anytime soon. Maybe if I'm curious some years down the road, maybe I'll check it out again. But it is a very piss poor film. Very disappointing film. It's sad that most likely Tony Todd will never play the character again. They haven't done a Candyman in 15 years now, so who knows what the future for the character holds. If I had to rate this one, I would give this one 1 skull. So I want to thank everyone for taking the time to watch this retrospective on the Candyman franchise. Really enjoyed the first film. The first film is just such a fantastic masterpiece. It's a movie I wish more people talked about. The second film has moments that are good. I don't think it stands up well to the original, but still, it's one that I enjoy watching and will revisit. And I do want to get the Scream Factory Blu-ray that did come out. The third one, on the other hand, is a complete piece of shit and a waste of time, and it is a true waste of Tony Todd's talents. But I'm curious what other people think about this franchise. Please share your thoughts in the comment section below if you've seen these Thanks so much again for watching. I hope everyone enjoys this, and please look forward to some more retrospectives coming very soon. Take it easy, stay scared.